Welcome back, everybody, to another round with Suns and Shadows, the only podcast that delves into the lost, forgotten, and canceled TV series. But this time, we're doing something a little bit different. It's 80s Animation Month. We're starting with some anime, so let's remember, relive and revisit these properties. Now, we've come back for Vampire Hunter D. I am your host, Vampire Hunter J.
And I am the noble Kev Smith.
And I'm Will the Vampire.
Sweet Jesus. All right. We are jumping right on into Vampire Hunter D. The distant future, vampires rule the night, but their numbers are dwindling. With huge bounties on their heads, a class of hunters has emerged. Bounty hunters. One hunter is unlike all the others. He's a Dunpeel, a half-human, half-vampire, at war with himself, feared by all, tortured and alone. He is Vampire Hunter D. All right, guys. What did you think of getting into this choice with Vampire Hunter D, and what is your favorite memories of this, if you have one? All right, let's start with you, Kevin.
I don't think I actually watched this from start to finish until maybe 2000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first one. And then the second one had just come out at that point. But I did see this at some point when I was a kid. Like, it was in the early 80s I'd seen this.
Okay.
So, and I don't know why or how, but like the scene at the very beginning where Doris is just before she meets Count Magnus Lee.
Right.
I remember that very vividly from my childhood. So like seeing that again in the 2000s was like, oh, hey, I remember this. And I just instantly bought it on DVD and I watch it all the time. Well, at least once a year at this point. Because that was, again, 22 years ago.
So Blockbuster carried it. That may be where you saw it.
Yeah, not in the 80s.
Yeah, it came out in 85. I think I saw it in like 92, 91 at Blockbuster. It was the second anime I ever saw after Akira.
Maybe.
Maybe Blockbuster was the first like big chain to carry it, but there might have been some local mom and pop stores that had it on VHS, or I don't know what the anime scene was like back then. It was obviously it was VHS. But
there was Akira, Ghost in the Shell, D, and Fist of the North Star.
Oh, and wasn't there a record of the Lodos Wars or something? It was like,
that's a OVA. That wasn't a theatrical though.
Oh.
But yeah, I think of all that, and I think like Ninja Scroll is like my other one that I remember from around that time. Yeah, I think the Blockbuster. I think you're right. That was the first big chain to carry it. But if you wanted to find it, otherwise, you had to like do some serious tracking down.
We had a really cool video store in Hollister where I grew up called Bob's. It was Bob or Barbara's. And Bob Valenzuela was the gentleman that ran it. And he was an old hippie from San Francisco. And so there was like cult classics galore in his shop. And this was before Blockbuster. And like, unfortunately, he was there all the way through the 90s until I graduated, at least, keeping up with Blockbuster. But I want to say they eventually had to shut down like everyone else. But his store is way cooler than Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to take a little bit of objection with some of your synopsis, with the first movie at least. A lot of that seems to be more with the second movie. I didn't see any fear from the townspeople of D, although I don't know if they knew he was a Dunpeel when they allow him to hunt the Count and keep Doris free. Did they know he was a Dunpeel?
Yeah, Vampire Hunter D, to your point, is definitely like a different sort of storyline, but it still incorporates D as a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
And, he's got it's a more traditional sort of feel to that one, less sci-fi-y, less everything. It's way more traditional fantasy, vampires. There's no futuristic equipment into it. So it is what this is based off of the first book. So clearly they're establishing just D, and that he is very similar to his ancestral king of who created them. So, it's definitely way more fantasy, but yeah, the Bloodlust is what I was reading the synopsis off of. So
yeah, no, that's what I figured. That's why I know, that's why I saw in Bloodlust. Yeah. They did have him being at war with himself in the first movie.
Oh yeah, it was way more played up in the second one.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed on the second watch through of Bloodlust, I noticed this a lot more. D doesn't really become a vampire, use his vampire side in Bloodlust up until the very, very final fight against the Countess. In the first movie, he goes blue eyes several times when pushed to that limit, like when he's killing the Lamia sisters, when he wakes up from the Lamia sisters draining him, his eyes go blue and his fangs come out and he vampires out or whatever.
He does that. Well, for one thing, that was budgetary. They didn't necessarily have the animation to make it as beautiful as they did in 2000.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there were limitations as to why it looks more like Transformers or G.I. Joe. But Transformers and G.I. Joe and Thundercats and stuff like that, just beautiful cartoons still, or features. But
it wasn't so much the appearance, it was more that Dee doesn't seem to use his vampire side in Bloodlust or tap into that much. He uses the hand more, I would say.
He uses the hand more because in Bloodlust, that's actually his third adventure as far as the books go.
Right.
Oh.
So he's to book 1 and 3 for the 2 movies.
Yeah. So he's evolved a bit more over a couple hundred years, I think, between Bloodlust and the original. Because of course there's 70 years difference between the beginning of Bloodlust and the end of Bloodlust.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, the grave scene at the very end, he brought flowers to her grave.
Yeah.
So that was her granddaughter.
Right.
So
yeah.
And he hasn't changed a day. So he's a very timeless being. So
right. The guy in that town even mentions that he hasn't aged a bit since he was a little kid.
And what that guy was saying, that's the second book. Or that's the synopsis of the second book, basically.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is Dee having to get back all these kids.
Fascinating.
And they basically they stone him for it because they find out he's a done peel.
Right.
And he's the lowest base creature like the least desirable creature. Humans don't want him and vampires don't want him because he's filthy and a traitor. So it's Dee's very much, as you said, he's that man with no name. He's alone, only associates really with kids because they're innocent enough to where they're not going to judge him.
Right.
And he's just forever a Ronin, and that's another good way to put it is without his father, he's a Ronin. He's just doing what his father told him to do.
This was very much a samurai sense of film set in the vampire world. Or like that too. Yeah. You were talking like the Man with No Name trilogy you had brought up the other day. And it definitely fits with like the loner style. And Samurai 7, is very similar to the Magnificent Seven. So there's a little bit of crossover appeal between the two genres and how they mingle together very, very well. Japanese love the Western culture like that, set in the Western period, because otherwise you wouldn't have gotten things like Trigun. You wouldn't have gotten things like Gunsword, which nobody ever talks about. But if you have seen Kill Bill, you know what Gunsword is if you're an anime fan. It's very much the same, the wife left at the altar for dead and whatnot. So it's a very good, enjoyable show. But there's always crossover. Gunsword.
Okay.
Huh.
It's very different. Like the girl is not the hero of the story. However, there's some elements that are a lot of fun, and it's a good one.
Cool.
But I mean, I definitely see the crossover appeal between the two genres.
They kept up the kind of, I don't know if the second one felt as obvious of a spaghetti Western, but maybe that was more the ability to actually spend a lot more on animation and have much more advanced animation than the 85.
That, and they had more characters and more storyline going on than just Vampire Hunter D has to rescue somebody. There was like 4 other subplots going on.
Yeah, it was a lot more complex. And something you mentioned about the artistic style being more basic, I thought was really interesting when I was watching how they managed to convey the static nature and then the motion in the first one by using like the moving background.
Yeah, and the flashing light. Yeah, that was really neat. I like the way that they did that. That's one of the things that made it stand out at the time, I think.
Yeah, and there is a very high aspect of D being static, or the mutant being static and just kind of moving across the screen in a static manner. all the backgrounds just streaking diagonally behind him with full of color and everything.
That's their way of conveying how fast D is. Like, he's faster than the blink of an eye, faster than a vampire is.
Yep.
And they talk about it in the books in a very poetic nature, the way that it's explained, but they could only show it in the movies and that's their best way of showing it, is just that flash of light, and then you see Meyer or whoever else just kind of slip in half.
Yep.
That's just how fast he was.
Yeah, I thought that was D in Bloodlust, and I didn't realize until watching it earlier today that was actually Carmilla.
Yeah,
I thought she just made it appear that the girl was with D there, but it wasn't even D at all, I realized.
Yeah, Carmilla was a really creepy bitch. I liked her.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. That was horrific. That was great horror right there.
They don't say it in the movie, but she was so barbaric and cannibalistic. She ate vampires too. That Dracula killed him himself, and that's his sword that stabbed her through the fucking heart into the casket.
Right, and that's why she was seeing Dracula's sword as D was coming for her with the sword tip.
Yeah, and then recognized him at the same time because he's a clone of Dracula.
Like, oh shit, not you again.
Yeah, what are you? Are you the Are you the Vampire King's son? She's saying as her spirit, or I don't even know what that was.
I want to say that was very similar to how the book ended too. She was shittily confused, like that could never happen to her. How the fuck did this happen?
Well, that gives me a good question for you that I hadn't thought of until just now. Is like, so that was Dracula's sword. Why didn't he take that sword for his own when he left, or is he very attached to his current sword? I don't know. I feel like if you have any sort of connection to the Vampire King originally, why not take something that actually technically should be yours?
I think it was because one, he just doesn't want it. Vampires have to come to an end. That's his purpose. And two, I think the sword is actually what was keeping her spirit locked there too.
Oh, okay.
I think, I'm not sure.
Well,
no, that would make sense.
It was, but once her spirit was completely obliterated between Meyer and D, I don't think that the sword needed to be there. But yeah, I think that was why why the Vampire King left it there.
That was a pretty good epic fight scene too.
Yeah, it was. It was confusing as shit, and that's what kind of made it cool too. Like, who is actually fighting who? Is this Carmilla making illusions, or is Meyer actually fucking fighting D?
Oh yeah, there was a part that got me confused earlier too. Well, when Dee's like going into the castle, and then all of a sudden he's got what's her name? Oh god, he's got Charlotte, and then you got the other guy showing up, and he's like, "You have my woman. What are you doing hiding behind the pillar over there?" And then he unveils the cloak, and it's like, dude, you are a vampire. Like, you got some style points to flaunt and be like, yeah, I got your girl over here.
D has much better style than any of the vampires. D has immense style. And here's a question. So the buckle design that's on D's belt buckle, and I think on like a clasp maybe, and it's on the horse. I can't tell whether that's supposed to be like a skull kind of thing. I really think it's the hand. The parasite. It looks like the hand's face.
I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
Yeah, Liz and I were watching this last night after I watched it a couple of times, and she couldn't tell either. It looks more like the face to me than a skull.
Well, there's some rewatchability for you. I'd have to go back and look too.
Yeah.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Not every skull, but most skulls do eventually have a face, and then they lose that face.
Right.
The hand's face more specifically.
The
face on the hand. Yeah.
Who gets cooler in Bloodlust? I liked him in the original, but he gets cooler in Bloodlust.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In the first one, I'm like, oh, you're kind of annoying.
Annoying and creepy.
Yeah.
He's more of an obvious parasite in Bloodlust, where he really doesn't want Dee to put him in danger.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, like we need to get out of here because I am gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
I rely on you for survival. You're the host, I'm the parasite.
Yeah. I liked him. He was always cool.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys catch up on any of like the voice actors at all and see any familiar names possibly? I don't know. I caught a couple names in the second one.
Honestly, just one, and that's Big Joe DiMaggio. Or John DiMaggio.
Yep. That's the first one that caught my eye, but then I also saw Dwight Schultz.
Yes, Reggie. Reggie was the fucking Baboso.
Or he's also from A-Team, Star Trek The Next Generation. He's been in quite a bit. And when I saw his name, I'm like, I'm going to have to go back and listen because I was not picking that up, and I should have. I'm very familiar with his voice. So that was props to him.
Yeah, no, it sounded nothing like him. I mean, he really did sound like a fucking clown.
Yeah.
Oh, God, what the hell was his name? Not Gimli. That's fucking Lord of the Rings. I have it right here. What the hell was his name? Bangy.
Yep, Bangy.
Dwight Schultz played Bangy.
Yep.
That was really cool. I when I noticed that, I was kind of like, that son of a bitch. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, right.
The one Marcus Brothers voice sounded really familiar to me.
That was
the leader guy.
Oh no. John DiMaggio was the big guy. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the one with the beard who is the last survivor who ends up a vampire zombie.
That is Borgoff, who's played by Matt McKenzie, who is known as Orin in Final Fantasy X.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Why didn't he play Null? Like that's
right.
If you guys haven't played Final Fantasy X, the character of Orin has a very deep voice, and he's very much like Dee, soft. He's not soft spoken. He doesn't say very much. It's like the kid says. There's two types of people: those who can't stop talking, and those who don't have anything to say, or those who don't have anything to say, versus those who don't say anything unless they have something important to say.
Right. That's not quite what he said. That's why I thought previously.
I'm paraphrasing, God damn it.
No, it's different. He says there's those who don't say things because they're thinking bad thoughts.
Oh, well, yeah.
Those who don't say much.
Well, that's another way of saying those who are mentally masturbating.
Yeah.
It seemed more malicious kind of bad thoughts to me.
It's angry masturbating. That happens. Everyone does that. At least 3 times. Shut up.
Put that hand away there, Will.
It's the carbuncle make me do it.
I don't know about having anger, and yeah.
Smells like sweat, anger, and shame. No, but speaking of all that nasty shit, as far as I know, I think I read like the first 12 books, and I only remember the first 3 or 4.
Okay.
Doris is the only girl that ever made Dee stop and think that he might have a caring affection for a woman. Like, never throughout the rest of the series does he actually, I think, fall in love. Now, somebody, if you've read the rest of the books and I'm wrong, please write in and let us know, or text us, whatever. But no, I'm pretty sure that's the important thing about Doris, is like, she was the one. He was fulfilling a promise to Layla, but Doris was the one that he actually cared about. And again, he watched her pass away as well.
Yeah, I always wondered what happened after the end of the first movie. I didn't even know there were books. I mean, obviously there's books. It makes sense.
I don't think I did until like 2007, 2006, somewhere around there.
I knew it was based off of something when I first saw this like years ago in college, but I didn't really know it was like a big book series. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll watch this. Hey, this is pretty good. What the hell? It's actually my introduction to anime, but
I think that's a lot of people's introduction to anime, actually. And I think the reason why so many people are able to watch Vampire Hunter D, even those people that don't like it, is because the author and the creator is not an anime fan. Like, he does not like anime.
Right.
So it was never important to him necessarily to have more anime features made. Like, a motion picture would have always been the coolest thing to him. Which is still up in the air after 30 some years, but I think the best we've gotten, I think, Jeff, you said that you found out that there's a series in pre-production.
Yeah, and
or pre-production hell.
Yeah, about 2015, they announced there was a show coming, and it sounds like it's been slow moving. And then, like when the COVID hit, it kind of hit a big snag. But it sounds like they have a script completed for the very first episode. It's supposed to be 45-minute episodes. I'm unsure if it's supposed to be live action or animated. That's where I'm a little confused. I didn't like do the most tremendous research, so listeners, if you know more about this, I'd love to hear more about it. I think we all would. But the idea is, I guess, is there's enough books to do a 7-season show with D. I am honestly a little surprised nobody's picked it up. And it sounds like who's doing the show are the people that did the Kickstarter for Messages from Cecilia, I think it's called. It's supposed to be loosely connected to Message from Mars. I don't know if Kevin, that sounds familiar, but that just got released back in January from the Kickstarter. And well, or at least in the big one solid collection. It's supposed to be available for retail at some point in the future. But the people who did that are actually actively working on this show. And so hopefully there is a website. We'll link it, in our description when we do it. But there's also a Facebook page. And if you go, like if you're on Facebook, definitely go to, just search for Vampire Hunter D, the series, and it'll take you there, or just go to the Vampire Hunter D page and there's plenty of like links and people talking about how they'd love to see this, or what's the newest update, or hey, I got the comic books. Oh, there's this great new figure coming out. So it's still a pretty active community out there. It's not a huge community, but it feels like you're part of something intimate and personal. So it's really cool. But to go back to your question about the show, they're working on it. Hopefully we can get something done about it. I'm curious who would pick up the show. This would be, if it's live action, this is going to be expensive.
Yeah,
it's going to be animated. It's going to be years before we even see one 45-minute episode. Well, and we just got Castlevania on Netflix, which is kind of a successor to this to an extent.
Yeah.
So which would you say is more of a horror movie and more of an action movie? Bloodlust or the 85D?
85's more horror.
It was kind of, didn't you say it was the first animated horror film in the West?
Yes, it was. For Japanese animated films, it was the first one that people saw and then recognized as, oh my God, animated horror movies work here in America. Let's start putting out more like this. Which is probably how we ended up getting like Ninja Scroll, like right around that same time too. That thing is like demonic.
Sounds fun.
Oh, you'd probably like Ninja Scroll, the movie. The show is a little more PG. Well, PG-13-ish, but that'd be worth doing too if there's enough interest from doing this episode. That's a show that was canceled short and could be beneficial to cover.
That'd be great.
Interesting. All right, I'm up to learning new shit about demonology and whatnot and all that. The Japanese horror is fucking awesome. Like I'm sorry, it's so different from American horror that it chills you to the fucking bone. Even if you don't like how it's Americanized in The Grudge or The Ring, you go to the source material and it's fucking chilling. And
absolutely.
The D books, a lot of them had messages beyond the poetry, because it was all poetic. A lot of them had messages about how we fuck up the earth, but they use vampires as the simile for that. Okay. Like global warming. Oh, okay. Well, now vampires have weather machines that fix everything, but that's damned everything too. Like these old things have to stay in shape. They're rusting apart because they keep the weather from fucking up. And if one of them does fall apart, like tornadoes exist, like pop up in certain areas.
Well, I love how this is like 10,000 years into the future.
Yes.
I love decaying futuristic civilizations, and especially in Bloodlust, you saw a lot more of that.
Yeah. With
the like wreckage of the satellite dishes or satellite transmitters, like at the radio telescopes.
Right.
Yeah, I want to say in the book to Bloodlust, they talk about a lot more that the vampires used to travel in the stars and shit like that. Like they had rockets and stuff and just would hold balls out in space or the moon or what and stuff like that. So in the movie to Bloodlust, they talk about it, of course, but it just seems like they're just going off to shoot up in this rocket. Like, where are you guys going to go once you fucking get there? Like, talk about where they're going.
Well, we saw it in the opening credits.
Oh, that satellite up there?
Yeah, there was
still
stuff in orbit.
Station.
Okay.
Well, I'll say this, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is the first introduction I had to vampires in space. And that actually I know it sounds goofy as shit, but it actually is a very cool concept considering when this came out. Like, what else was doing something that could possibly be an explanation to vampires, not just, oh, it's a blood virus, thank you Blade for this, or a mutated something creature, thank you, oh god, what's that show on Netflix, Midnight Mass, or it's a biblical angel that somebody thinks is a devil. And you got this sort of concept from like back then. It's like, the blackness of space, you never have to worry about sunlight too bad, and that actually plays up here. And I don't know, I think it's a cool concept. And eventually they get around to like a show called Trinity Blood, which is not very horrific at all. It's another vampire story, but they got a lot of space going on in there. I don't know, I think it's a cool concept, but it's never been executed the best. This is probably the best example of it being done very well, because they do very little in space.
It doesn't bother me, other than the fact that there is actually no place to hide from the sun in space. Like, unless you're behind the moon,
you got the shutters on the thing.
Yeah, get your lead shields down. Close the barn, as Iron Man would say.
It's like if you're just going to be up in space with lead shielding, because like vampires are definitely reactive to radiation. Like sunlight is radiation.
Yeah, but they're pretty impervious to everything else. And the older they get in this canon, that's the way that they are.
That's what I was about to bring up, is like every iteration of a vampire story has its own set of rules. We don't know the rules for these guys quite yet, other than direct sunlight is a problem.
D also has problems going over bridges.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like running water, just like that's the similarity between him and Blade, because Blade is of course a Dunpeel as well.
A Dave Walker,
yeah. He can't go over bridges with running water under it. It weakens vampires and shit like that. So that's one of the weaknesses that he adopts. Sun is not one of them.
I thought the sun weakness that he developed I wasn't too sure what I thought about that, especially the way it happened in the middle of the fight.
Well, that's just convenience.
For
writing.
Exactly. It's
was
just
that at the fight at the end of Bloodlust?
No, that's with the woman who can morph into substances she touches. Mutant from.
Yeah, that mutant was, I don't remember her name, but she was kind of cool too. Like basically the absorbing man from the Incredible Hulk, but cool. She would turn into metal, trees, bricks, everything. She was cool. But when she was fighting him, D starts smoking and getting hot and tired. Right. And you hear the carbuncle tell him, "Didn't I tell you about heat sickness?" And then Layla has to bury him in the dirt because, of course, in English vampire mythology, they get more powerful as they're in the dirt, especially their home dirt, like Dracula was.
Okay, I forgot I was going to actually ask that, but days in between when we were going to record to now, I was going to ask about that because I'm like, why is he burying himself? But his head is still above ground.
Yeah.
And why is he burying himself again? I mean,
he still needs to breathe. He's not undead.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Well, and I was confused how he was going to dig with a sword.
Tenaciously. I don't know.
Well, if that's all you got, you gotta do something. You can't do it with your fingers.
It seems fingers might be more effective.
Yeah.
And maybe use the sword to kind of break up some stuff, and then
to break the topsoil.
He was using both hands.
He was under a tree. He was in what, under a tree, or what was he under?
Yeah,
it was like a forest oasis. It was really pretty area. It looked fertile, if you will.
But how do you hold a sword to dig by the blade with your other hand? I mean, obviously you have one hand on the sword's hilt.
With porcelain skin.
Well,
Like
with
his-
Oh
most,
yeah, it's D. Yeah, of course.
well, with most swords, there can be, you got the grip and then you got the pommel. Then there's usually a little strip, maybe about 2-3 inches long, that is just a dull portion before it turns into a full blade. So some swords have that to where you could grab right there above the pommel and then strike down. I think that's what they were doing, but I really wasn't paying that much attention to the sword. But some swords do have a little grip you can get, even if it's just, for some it might just be like 2 fingers, but for others it might be about enough to put 4 fingers around.
And isn't D's sword a kind of samurai sword? Like
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Whatever they call it, a double-handed katana, I think. I don't know.
It's basically like Sephiroth's sword.
Yeah.
Ginormous and long and awesome. Not like his wiener, but his sword. His Sephiroth, we all know, has a little wiener.
We don't get to see his prowess in these movies.
That's why we were, he was so pissed at Cloud. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't even know if that works.
What?
And then, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, I know in the Anne Rice novels, their junk don't work and shit, but they don't really talk about D's junk at all.
I am not very,
Yeah.
I like vampire stuff, but I am not very knowledgeable about like things outside of like some film and some anime I've seen.
I read way too much Anne Rice as a teenager.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
I still haven't seen that movie, Interview with a Vampire.
See it for historical purposes, but it's fucking cheesy as shit.
Okay, so question for you. By comparison to the book, 2 different book series, because this was the legit novel sort of book series, how would you compare them to Anne Rice? I mean, is Anne Rice just more of a classical kind of story, and this is just more of a fantastical one? Or how would you...
Anne Rice,
Just because I'm legit curious, actually.
Anne Rice is more of a traditional American writing.
Okay.
Her writing is, I don't want to say plain, it's descriptive. It's descriptive, and her books are romantic. They're adventurous, they're romantic. You root for Lestat just as much as you fucking hate him in Interview with the Vampire, almost.
Okay.
D is very poetic. Every beginning to every D book is just like, the first 4 pages is like describing this silhouette of a dark man on a horse coming through the sunrise and entering the town, and it's very poetic in how he describes D in every book.
Yeah.
Or horror is described poetically. Like, it's a lot of 50-cent words for just really disgusting shit. Nothing comes to mind immediately right now. My books are all packed away, but
that's cool.
He has a much different style of description. Like, horror is more beautiful in Japanese writing than it is in American.
Okay.
Yeah. American's much more grisly and in your face. And that's why Anne Rice's books weren't all immediately put into movies. They're romance adventure to a point. Like, and I don't mean that derogatorily. I love each and every single one of them, but they're not American horror actiony. It's not grisly. There's story to it and substance.
Okay.
Except for Queen of the Damned.
Oh God.
The movie.
Yeah, right.
I've never read any Anne Rice novels. I think I saw Interview with the Vampire once, not actually actively watching it. It wasn't something put on against my will. I think I had it on the background while I was playing a game.
It's a very interesting movie. It's very Hollywood for the time, and it's very hairdressery for the time. It could have been better. They had a great cast of phenomenal actors, and even Tom Cruise, for as much as I can't fucking stand him, did a performance so well that even Anne Rice had to apologize to him for being pissed that he was cast as Lestat.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the best of the worst in that regard. Like Brad Pitt, I love Brad Pitt movies. Like, ever since True Romance and shit, he's fucking rad. Is so melodramatic. And it's like, oh my God, you just fucking get over it. So, but if you really want to enjoy Interview with the Vampire, if you could find it, there's an audiobook that's read by F. Murray Abraham. And he even does the voices like Mom and Dad used to. No,
okay.
It's really good. Like, he reads it beautifully.
Definitely need to check that out.
Yeah, definitely recommend that. And then go watch Star Trek Insurrection.
Yeah, he was the best part of that movie.
Yeah, that and the Admiral getting his face ripped apart.
Yes, totally agree.
That sort of thing is my bag.
Was Insurrection the one with that like nobody saw?
No, that was Nemesis.
Nemesis, that was the one. Which
That
one
was
was
the last
Insurrection?
one before they rebooted it. Insurrection, that is where they go to the planet to be young again. And Picard falls in love with somebody on the planet. The Federation's trying to actually wipe out the planet. And isn't that the one where Data goes a little nutty too? And they got to catch him and reprogram him. It's like an episode of Next Gen, just in a movie form.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't First Contact. Like, it was hard to follow First Contact.
Yeah, they shot their load early with that one.
Yeah, like,
love First Contact, and I love Next Gen, so don't get me wrong, but Insurrection was dull. I mean, whenever somebody mentions Insurrection, the first thing that pops into my mind is, I'm definitely feeling aggressive tendencies from Worf.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude's going through like this Klingon form of puberty, and he's got like acne going on. I'm definitely feeling aggressive tendencies. And I'm like, oh God, that movie.
I would have loved if they would show him like dry humping a tree or
or just going crazy, you know.
Very few
Mark
things,
for
anyway.
edit.
So anyway, back to mutants and mayhem and shit. What did you guys think about the difference of the mutant cast between the two different movies? Because you see them as more of monsters, foreboding background monsters in the first movie, it seemed like, whereas in the second one they gave them a little bit more character to them.
Yeah, I like the ones in the second movie more. I don't know if that's because they're able to do more animation wise with them and have multiple of them running around versus, well, I'm sure it was a budgetary constraint maybe in 85. So I have the one guy.
Perhaps. But the Barbaroi, the tribe of mutants, I loved their backstory. They were a really neat addition.
That was great.
Even with that goddamn annoying Babosa Reggie.
I really like the way they portrayed it with like the windmills and it just kind of like looking more like a hive,
right,
than like the actual city.
They did. Yeah, that was one of their things. Is they made things similar but more upscale for the vampires and their technology and structures and shit like that.
Yeah, that was the main thing that I noticed in the first one, other than like the cyborg horses and the guns and the fence posts. The real like ruined technology, or not ruined, like modern technology, maybe advanced to us, was in the Count's castle. With, like the metal plates everywhere and the walkways, piping and everything.
That was the only part where they really they show you in the movies what they talk about in the books as far as how the vampires have evolved their technology and basically ruled the earth with their technology, not just their power. And you would see like Magnus's castle or the Heidi house and Bloodlust, and then the rocket ship eventually. Like they had all that technology in a time where nuclear war had already destroyed everything. I want to say that's what caused the apocalypse, was nuclear war, and then the vampires arose.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
the vampires remained after the nuclear holocaust, I think. I'm not sure. It was one of the two.
Yeah, I was really curious how things evolved to their current state.
Mutation from nuclear war.
Oh.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I was wondering where the vampires came from too. They were always here.
It doesn't say, because again, Dracula is supposed to be the first, and from him grows so many. Dracula never intended to rule the earth. Like he grew past that apparently. And these younger vampires like Magnus Lee or Meyerlink, that was not their thing. They were ruling over their food. The earth was their smorgasbord. Humans are their food and mutants are their minions. And so that's why Dee always has that message from Dracula that visitors from the past are going to, not be there in the future or need to stay in the past. He's basically saying your time was long past. You didn't deserve to do what you did. You've long overstayed your welcome.
Yeah.
I'm here to take each and every one of you motherfuckers out.
Yep.
On the first one, it's not so clear if he's trying to exterminate. I mean, he's a vampire hunter, but it seems like maybe part of his reason for killing the Count is that the Count is like being a monster and like actually preying on humans,
Yes,
rather than just ruling.
Yes, D would have killed him anyway. That's the
Right.
thing. But he gets bounties first, because shit, cyborg horses aren't fucking cheap.
No, he goes through a couple of them in the second one.
Yeah, how much was it in the second one? Oh, 300,000.
Yeah, just 300,000.
And
I'll
that's
charge
from a
however
guy.
much I want.
And that's from a guy who should be hooking him up for saving his life, and he's still charging him 300,000.
Well,
he's a crotchety old man.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's still a society that he's living in, and he's still gotta get food on his own table. He's, if I was in the same position, I'd be like, I'll get you the horse at what I think is the appropriate cost. I'm not going to overcharge you. I'm not going to screw you over. Just this is the asking price. Take it or leave it. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
but then he stood up when the sheriff showed up, and he's like, no done peels here. Don't care who you guys are. We don't like your kind. You're not allowed here. We're not selling to you. And the old man's just like, yeah, I ain't putting up with this shit. You guys get out. You get the horse and leave. Thank you for saving my life when I was a kid.
That reminded me, they must have stolen that a little bit from Gene Hackman's character in Unforgiven.
Yeah, I was going to say it's out of a Western.
That sheriff took no shit, was an asshole, but deserved what he got because he was a racist and a prick.
Yeah.
But, he got what he deserved. And this sheriff kind of does too for being an ignorant prick.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't die for it, but
no,
he gets made to look like an asshole and an idiot.
Yeah. And a weak bastard. An old man took him out. Or an old man scared him to shit.
Yeah,
I'd be pretty scared of a giant. I'd be pretty scared of a giant bolt rifle pointed to my head.
Oh my god, that rifle was like, holy crap! Is that what you've been working on for like the last year?
That would have made Burt Gummer proud.
Oh, I wish he would have shot it, or we would have gone to see him fire it as like a warning.
Well, he wasn't dead at the end. Who knows if they do the show or they were to come back, or if he shows up in a later book. Who knows? Or maybe he's dead by the time we get to that point, because Moondy's aging like 70 years, like every 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Did
all right.
he age at all, ever?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, I don't know, because again, they don't necessarily say who his mother was or how he was born, but it's alluded to that Dracula created him, or he's one of his creations.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I meant to go back and circle back to that. Like, what is he? Yeah.
He was Dracula's answer to fixing everything, basically.
He's the solution.
Yeah, he is the clone that could do what Dracula can't. We don't know what happened to him. He's not dead. He just went away, disappeared.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Dracula went away?
Yeah. As far as I could tell, like, they don't actually say. Some think he is dead. D makes it very not apparent, but seem like he's gone away. Like, he does talk to his dad in the second book. The second one, I think, is where he talks to his dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's a hologram, so it's kind of like Superman, where he's talking to Jor-El and shit like that. In the like Fortress of Solitude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's his consciousness programmed into something, but it was really neat too.
Now, I did notice, just as a quick aside, talking about the books again, they are starting to release those in omnibuses, like, so 3 books in one book series.
Okay.
The first one just came out. The next one, I think, is coming out September. Don't quote me on that, but it's coming out soon. So that's the first 6 books, and on Amazon at least, it's $17.99 for an omnibus.
Oh wow, they were like $12-$13 for the fucking each individual book.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
These are supposed to, I don't know who's putting it out. It might be Dark Horse for all I remember, but those are coming soon. I'm seriously thinking about that. Like, I need another book series I need to read through.
I have no time for books, but that sounds fascinating from what you're talking about, Kevin. Yeah. I'd love to see the D universe expanded more. And
Audible, baby. If they have it on Audible or whatever the fuck it is, you try it out. Like, because they're really poetic and beautiful books, and some of it is scary. They're all interesting. Like, they are page turners to a point. Like, you want to find out what's going to happen or what monster is going to come out next, and it's like a lot of fucked up shit happens in the books.
So in the books, is there more of like that vampirism as like a sexual kind of thing like they have in the first movie, or more like a romantic love kind of thing like they have in the second movie?
It's a little bit of both. it's well, see, one of the things that they don't talk about in and I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it up in Bloodlust. Okay, you see the guy that they kill him and his spirit goes ultra powerful and fucking kills everything. The Marcus brothers would rape Layla 6 ways from Sunday, basically. And they even would they would put her down and force the paralyzed brother on top of her and kind of motion and guide his hips to do things. And I don't remember if that's kind of what intrigued the spirit power or not, but they were not kind of Layla. So there was no reason why Layla would have been sad that they died. Like, she was not sad to see any of the fucking Marcuses go. They found her when her parents were killed, and she just had no place else to go after that. And there were an ends to justify a means to justify an end. She needed to kill more vampires. And
I wish you could see the shock look on my face.
I could take a picture. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the third book was a little rapey. Like, the Marcus brothers were dickheads. Like, they deserved each and everything that they got. So, and they made sure to villainize them in the books. There was nothing heroic about them.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling while watching this, there was something a little more darker about them, but they weren't really like hinting. It's just a feel you got from the characters. Like, these guys seem like they're pretty fucking dickish.
Yeah. So that was the thought I had about, like, who are the monsters in the second movie? Is it the sheriff and the townspeople? And I mean, Count Meyer Link, he's a count, by the way. I found that out decoding or translating the letter from the countess to the count. But yeah, he doesn't actually hurt anyone.
No.
He's, if anything, he defends the woman. What, her name was Charlotte? Charlotte?
Yeah, he defends her only. He has fed on that village for centuries, however, for hundreds of years, though.
Oh, okay.
So
but they don't show that.
No, they don't show it per se, but each vampire has their own castle and territory, for lack of a better term. And the villages are basically under their control. Whether they come out or not, those villages are under their control. Magnus Lee didn't come out for like 200 years, I think, at one point. And then finally he comes back. And I think that's where you see him at the beginning, is he'd been gone for decades, almost 100 years or so. And that was the first he'd pop back up, was seeing Doris and wanted to make her his bride.
So the mutants are definitely monstrous and evil, but Meyer was
not
portrayed as not a monster. And like you said, Jeff, I got a definite sense from the Marcus brothers that they were not good people.
Yeah.
And that they were on the level with the mutants, especially the way they introduce them.
Yes, because they killed for pleasure and pay. They didn't kill for necessity or whatever. It was always sport. They'd have fun if they were torturing a vampire, or even not a vampire. If there was a fucking regular ass person, they'd probably beat him up and bully him.
Well, that one person in their crew who was on like life support, it looked like are you, clearly the guy is along to help them, but it feels like, man, you're just using that dude for his spiritual powers that he can do. Like, yes. That's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, was he one of the Marcus brothers, Grove?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say he was one of their brothers, the actual brothers, but yes, I want to say so.
Yeah.
Because all four of the guys were brothers, right?
Yeah.
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 At least that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, that was my impression.
That's what they said anyway. If that's false advertising otherwise.
Yeah, right.
Marcus Bros and Co. You know,
well,
the rapists.
You know, when in the shadow fight scene when Beggy took out the one who just kept standing there, and they're like, he dead. What?
Oh, I love that.
He dead. I was just like, I don't remember this from when I've watched this before. Holy crap.
That was cool.
That was just really good.
Stabbing the shadow and the guy dying.
Well, just the way he was looking and like ready to protect his brothers and shit. He reminded me of Billy from Predator, where it's like he was just waiting for it and then it instantly got taken out because the monster's better than him. But his heart was there, goddammit.
Yep.
Now it's over there.
So do you think Dee would have killed Count Meyer on top of the carriage at the beginning, if not for Charlotte saying something, crying out for Meyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looked like it. So that says something really powerful about D, because Meyer's taunting him for, you fucking idiot, you're gonna take me on at night.
Yeah, but Meyer's kind of an arrogant prick too. All the vampires are arrogant pricks.
Yeah. I mean, they're very feudal. I mean, it's a very feudal society.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, they've all got their own territories and shit.
Right. So I was kind of curious about how different nobility ranks rank up, because all these guys that we've seen were counts. So it turns out that you go king and then prince, but prince isn't necessarily the heir. A prince is just someone who rules over a principality. And then you have dukes, and then you have counts. But below that, you have like viscounts, you have earls, you have barons, et cetera, et cetera. But it goes basically king, prince, duke, count. So these counts are pretty fucking high up in terms of, like you said, it makes sense that they'd rule like an area, or that they'd rule an area ruled by underling nobilities.
It's almost like Spanish governors in California, almost like they all had their own particular area to take care of.
Yeah. I'm sure there was probably internal struggles and like beefs with each other, like, hey, you're on my territory. And then you got to go up the hierarchy to be like, somebody needs to decide what's going on here, or there's going to be a freaking war.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far into it, but that sounds cool. I want to say there were more war machines, I remember. They might have even shown them wreckages in Bloodlust, but I don't remember.
No, they showed the wreckages of the interstate highway system.
Yeah.
And they showed the wreckages of the satellite dishes when he was in the desert with the sand mantas. And I know there was more. Oh, like the temple covered by, the ruined temple covered by vines and stuff.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah, and then the bridge. And the castles, why do the castles crumble when the vampires die? Because the castle in the first one disintegrated after Count Magnus died, or as he died. And when Carmilla dies, her castle's crumbling.
Well, in Carmella's case, her spirit was holding everything up. Her spirit was so strong and powerful that it created this illusion that held everything together, kind of like old Loki in the Loki TV series. Like was able to create that illusion and hold it to be reality for a time. She was able to keep doing that because her hate and power was so strong. Magnus Lee probably hit the self-destruct button.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah, like he's.
I was just thinking. I think the castle was crumbling as D was killing him.
Yeah,
I don't think it was when he died. Actually,
well, if you start to weaken that, he loses his control over the castle. Like if there's any sort of like magic going on, as insinuated in Bloodlust, the second you start weakening that spirit, cracks are going to start. There might have been some when he was, in Bloodlust, but overall the destruction is at the same time as the destruction of everybody else.
Yeah, and it's also really fun.
Oh god, yeah.
It's crumbling.
Well, Will, just to kind of point something out, you were bringing up like the hierarchy and the classes and stuff and how that might potentially work. If you like that kind of intrigue, I actually would recommend the Castlevania show on Netflix. That is 4 seasons long. They get into quite a bit of that, and it's really good, actually.
I've been meaning to finish that. I watched the first season and was blown away and just never got around to the rest. So
second season's a setup for the last 2 seasons. It's great. It gets even better.
Is it all about Trevor?
Yeah.
Or does it go through the Belmont family?
No, not yet. The next series is going to jump to the next Belmont heir.
Okay.
But they really focus in on the group from the main first season.
See, I watched the pilot and I really liked it, especially considering, like I said, they included Trevor. Right. I always really liked Trevor from Castlevania 3.
Yeah.
Which again is where you get to play as Alucard also.
Right.
Or Vampire Hunter D.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess that's 2 fucking video games he's in now, because they made a video game to Bloodlust that I think you said it goes for like $70 to $80 or $70 to $90 on eBay now.
Yeah, when I saw that, because I was taking a look, I'm like, I might be interested if it's a good cheap price, $15-20, I'd be willing to pop for that. No, I'm seeing $69.99 for a used copy.
Woo!
I'm like, damn, I ain't doing that.
And the board game. Weren't we talking about the board game?
Was there a board game?
That was the Evil Dead series with the board game.
Okay.
If they had a board game for this, that'd be pretty freaking sweet.
Yeah, right. Because there's plenty of mutants and shit.
Yeah. Definitely room for a
Should
board
do a
game.
drinking game with this series.
You guys want to do a
Jesus.
Kickstarter for a Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust board game before other people do?
Hey, let's talk to them VHD series people, see if they want to do that.
Yeah, right.
And give them
Might
some
happen
money going
before.
so they can do their show.
Because
Yeah, exactly.
the fact that they've never made more of these is just redonkulous. It really is. Like, this is like the white person's outreach to fucking foreign culture animation style and storytelling. And it's pretty much all, anyone can get into this. If you know what a fucking vampire is, if you know who Dracula is specifically, you could fucking watch this and pretty much understand what's going on. You could understand that people get mutated by fucking nuclear warfare.
Yeah.
Like, you get it. You could understand it. It's more understandable than most anime is for your average fucking dumbass American.
Akira.
Yeah.
Akira.
Man, oh god, Akira. I tried to watch that in high school. Like, somebody was playing that in like science class. Anybody who's listening from my high school probably knows it was Mr. Teacher's class. But they would bring in animated movies and they played Akira, and after 15 minutes I was just grossed out by the whole thing. I'm like, I am totally not interested. And it wasn't until D on Sci-Fi Channel in college when I'm like, okay, I'll watch this, and by the end I'm like, that was freaking cool. And okay, maybe I'll give this anime thing another crack. And then I've been a fan ever since. But
So I saw Akira as my first anime, and the only reason I even saw it was because I was into, was it Magic the Gathering? Or I think it was a comic books magazine called Wizard back then.
Ah, yes. Yep.
Yeah, I was reading it in middle school, and they had an article about anime. Well, it was Japanime.
Oh yeah,
That's how
I
they
remember
refer to
hearing
it.
that word. Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the only reason I could hang on through the boring, weird shit in Akira was because it had talked about how awesome it was. So I hoped that good stuff was coming, and it did.
I used to love Wizard magazine. They should have never stopped printing that shit. Shame on y'all for stopping it.
Right.
They pretty much caused things to rise and fall in the comic book industry. They were fucking amazing. Like,
Wow.
a comic book got popular and sold out because they said it was going to be cool, and that rose the fucking price up and shit. If they said it sucked, it dropped the fucking price in comic books. It was cool. And
Vampirella.
yeah,
That was a cool depiction of vampirism.
Yeah, they had plenty of covers with her, and so did Hero magazine, which were actually, you could fold those open. Not
Like a
porn.
certain-
It
I was
wasn't
about to
porn,
say.
but
No.
it was definitely a pinup. It was definitely a pinup. Hero magazine got put under by Wizard. Like, they were competitors.
Oh.
And they had a bunch of cool contests that you could enter shit in. Like, I remember one of them that I tried really hard to win was a guitar signed by Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne. I'm like,
Ooh.
Wow.
like nobody ever won their contest. So they got all these people's fucking information for contest entries, but never fucking did like the contest winners and shit. So like they eventually went out of fucking print.
Oh my god.
Long before Wizard did, which I want to say was around 2005 or 7, somewhere around there.
Okay. I think I was reading like New Type USA around those years. That was just a strictly anime magazine, because they have a magazine in Japan called New Type, and then they did the American version, which everything was in English, so you could actually read about like everything.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they stopped making that, and I never got refunded on my last subscription because it got canceled.
Oh shit.
Track them down,
Anyway.
Jeff. Track them down.
Oh, it's already been way too long, dude. You're talking
Doesn't
like
matter.
2008.
There's no
It's the
statute
principle.
of limitations on an ass whooping.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's the principality.
So what did you guys think in the first D when the hand was revealed?
I remember being like, what the fuck is that?
I'm like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, but like the more you get to know him, and again, this comes with reading the books, it's like you really get to like him. He's more like he is in Bloodlust in the books than he is in the first movie. Or it's kind of a mixture of the two. Like, he is creepy, but he's the only person that really picks on D because he can. And that is definitely his pleasure, is fucking with him. And it gets kind of funny in certain areas.
So do you think one of the reasons the first one was very approachable is because it wasn't, like you said, an anime? It was very heavily like a spaghetti western kind of Ronin kind of samurai movie thing.
Maybe. I mean, its animation was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Again, and we didn't know as Americans that were already watching Japanese animation with, again, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, and all that shit that basically wasn't filmation, was coming from this rich, beautiful cultural animation style. And so it had that familiarity, and I want to say it's the familiarity of again of the animation, and then the story that people were able to reach out and understand it. Just like when we talk about how do you suggest somebody what a good riff to start with is MST. What's a good episode? All you tell them, well, everybody knows who Bela Lugosi is. Watch this. So it's that principle. Everyone knows who Dracula is, like I said. So it's that familiarity that people could automatically understand. They don't feel like they're immediately going to misunderstand something culturally, because it didn't present itself. It's hard to explain. It did not present itself as an anime per se.
Mm-hmm.
No, it treated itself as a serious film. It didn't treat itself, oh, we're vampires.
Correct.
It was using animation as the storytelling medium rather than as an anime like Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, and it wasn't
at that time.
There was nothing corny about it. This was not like watching a fucking Toho film with monsters that are corny as shit.
There's no goofy characters. There's no fan service, as you call it in anime, with like panty shots and things like that. There's nothing sexy about this.
There was
the
a
characters
panty
by
shot.
The characters themselves are sexy, but like they don't actually go full bore on like. But yeah, you say panty shot, but it's not the same sort of panty shots you would get in about every other anime at that time, or even now.
Yeah.
Look, they don't have pants for ladies 10,000 years in the future. That's, yeah. They're lucky that skirt went down 2 inches instead of just 1.
Exactly.
So the sexuality in the first movie is a really heavy theme, it seems like vampirism in a way is inherently like a sexual thing.
Yes.
With the kiss of the vampire. And then it doesn't really happen that much again until the shower scenes, particularly. I remember it when the doctor, after he becomes a vampire zombie, rips open Doris's blouse and reveals the one breast and the nipple. After that, we get the shower scene. But I think that's the last of it.
I'd probably say so, because it's not necessary per se. Like they show it, so they show it to a point and it's implied. So I guess with it being implied, they didn't necessarily need to feel the need to keep showing it that way or showing it that much, because there was so much other stuff to show.
Yeah.
You
don't have to hit the well that often.
I don't think Dee does anything with Doris.
No.
I mean, she offers it at the very beginning.
He's
right,
tempted,
and
though.
so we see the temptation when he's about to.
He's tempted to feed, not
Right.
actually have intercourse with her.
But after that, there's not much sexuality. I mean, the Count, when he hypnotizes.
The most important thing that was sexualized was the sanguine moon.
Right.
The blood moon. That was the most sexual thing that they could talk about, by saying that the vampires feel that on the blood moon that a woman's blood is unpure. And you're just kind of like, don't say that around my wife.
I never made that connection until now.
And again, going back to Anne Rice novels, Lestat actually kind of goes down on the no parts of a bleeding woman.
That would be another great photograph of me being shocked to fuck.
You're welcome. I'm an education kind of guy.
We do have a video feature that we might do a snapshot on and post. All right, with all that said, and now we're going to get on to our social media blast before we wrap up this episode. I'm going to start with Facebook. We have Lily Aguilar. I remember watching the first movie on the Sci-Fi Channel. They played in the early morning or late at night. That's how I watched it. I was probably too young to watch it, but I never got caught. Good girl. Years later, I saw some early concept art for Bloodlust at a Comic-Con. I was super excited to see it and couldn't wait for the film. I saw it at an art house theater that showed foreign films. I loved it so much, I saw it twice in the same day. Excellent, great work. And if I could have seen it in the theater, I absolutely probably would have loved it. But by that time, I was not knowing that anime was actually being shown in art house theaters, honestly.
I was today years old knowing that.
Yep.
I know, right?
That would have been pretty cool to see.
The last art house film I went to go see was the Blair Witch Project, which was on the Santa Cruz beach.
Yeah.
And I ran out straight to the ocean and threw up in it. So that was, haven't gone to an art house theater since then.
Don't even ask the last art house theater movie I saw, because it was in a theater, but it was not an art house film.
What do you think of Blair Witch Project, Jeff? That's a favorite of yours, right?
I'd rather watch 8
Throw that on every
all day.
Halloween.
No, I hate that movie. I wanted to walk out of that theater. Actually, everybody is screaming, and I'm like, this is the dumbest fucking shit I've ever seen. It only gets interesting literally the last like 3 minutes, and it's still dull and unimpressive. Hey, I'll give it credit for being like as innovative as it was and the impression it had on the industry. So I'll never take points off of that, but you love it. Hey, that's totally up to you. Me, hate it.
The only thing it did was create viral marketing. That was the only thing that movie did.
Yeah.
It fooled so many ding-dings. Now that's me being really fucking polite for idiot. Like I worked with this one guy, Hollister Internet, when I was a kid, just graduated high school. He's like, oh, dude, that movie's so fucking real. I've seen it 3 times. And these kids, they still don't know what happened to them, because they really played it online like this shit was real. Right. And I'm like, dude, they were on fucking Letterman last night. Well, they must have filmed that before the movie then. Why the fuck would they have been on Letterman before the fucking movie?
That's some crazy denialism.
Movie, you are this movie's demographic, you stupid fuck.
Demographic.
Dema butt crack.
And that's a movie. Blair Witch has an interesting premise. Like, it would be pretty fucking creepy to be lost in the woods.
Dude, I live in Oregon. That happens all the fucking time.
Wisconsin.
Okay.
All the time.
Well, I live in a desert, so I don't do woods.
Where there are no trees. No,
there's trees. They're just spiky.
Yeah, they're spiky. I've been to Fort Huachuca. It's fucking terrifying there. That's where I almost got bit by that rattlesnake. Anyway, I lost it. No, part 2 was great because it had an orgy, but otherwise, the only thing that movie did was create viral marketing, which I absolutely love. Viral marketing. It's the most grassroots shit there possibly is. But no, it has no place in entertainment beyond that.
Well, and was there any of the like shaky cam horror movies for that? I didn't think so.
Nope. You did not need to have Dramamine before you went to go see a movie.
No.
And just think, if that had not come out, we probably wouldn't have TJ Miller either.
That's true too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then we're going to get back to Maureen Acino. The books Pilgrimage of the Sacred and Profane was my first, and I was struck by the over-the-top descriptions. At first, I couldn't handle how Dee and the settings and such were described. I'll have to read it again to remember the phrases that gagged me. But then I came across the manga done by Saiko Takaki, thought, oh my god, how gorgeous, and gave the books another try, and they really grew on me. I've been in love with the series and tried to get the English volumes. Just watched the original film with the boyfriend last month, and for the first time, and it was so much fun that I thought it would be. I had seen a spoiler of Dee dying, and I wrote it off because I thought, no, he wouldn't be that nosy when dying. Basically, I come to no conclusions quickly, but Dee got to me. He's so freaking cool. Yep, he is cool.
Agreed.
He is. He's the original Blade. Like,
yeah.
He's fucking rad. He's that no problem too big kind of person.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. And then we're going to shift on over to Twitter. We got our buddies, or the ladies, over at Doom Generation Podcast, who chimed in. This was the first adult anime I ever saw. I remember lying in my parents' waterbed entranced. And we were just talking about Dramamine. And then we got Speaks Volumes. This was the first anime Marty showed me that started me on my path. Great job, Marty. This is a great introduction to anime, especially for any of you anime fans out there. I'm sure you would agree, especially if you're into the violent and the anime.
You know, the funny thing is I do not like anime. I don't.
I know. We've heard this.
I know.
Behind the scenes here.
And I always feel bad because bless her heart, Jen Peters loves it so much.
Yeah.
And I love her so much that I will never say a bad word about it around her. But beyond this and like maybe Fist of the North Star, I can't think of a single anime movie that I've been like, oh, this is the shit.
I got a couple you might like, and I've mentioned a couple to you, but you seem to need them to be a little more serious and not so freaking goofy or aloof.
Yeah, I can't handle that shit. I can't.
Yeah, there's one.
That's why I don't.
Got a little goofy going on, but you would probably like Hellsing.
Ooh. Oh yes, I've always been told I would like Hellsing. I'm kind of like, again, okay, I like vampires, and again, everybody knows who Hellsing is. I just don't know where to begin with that. So, and I'm sure as soon as she hears this, Jen's gonna fucking tell me or read me the riot act about it too.
I would. Well, there's a TV show, and then they adapted it into an OVA series, and it's called Hellsing Ultimate, and that is basically the most straight adaptation of the manga there is. It's excellent. The TV show does diverge a little bit, but it's also very interesting with their divergence. So they create some characters, different story, because the manga hadn't gone that far.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a short series, both way. Ultimate is 9 episodes. The TV show is 13. And the book series is like 9 volumes as well.
That's not bad at all.
So it's pretty
cool.
sweet. I think that's going to conclude our podcast, gentlemen.
All right. Well, thank you guys for letting us know what you guys thought about the movies and shit, and loving it, because we love Vampire Hunter D too. Like, this is something we've all kind of grown up with in a way, in different ways. And we're glad that you guys are reaching out and just feeling the same way about this pop culture shit.
In space, no one can hear you scream. Unless you have a podcast. It's Space Castle! Join 3 nerds.
I'm PT. I'm Alex. And I'm Seth.
As they hurtle through space, debating movies, books, games, and answering your pop culture questions. All to maintain their own sanity. Space Castle. Your clubhouse and ours for all things nerdy. Available wherever pods are casted.
Shit, I'm going to be quiet. Edit.
Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at sunsandshadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.